The video we're about to see is a movie review by a father and son who filmed this video for a Halloween video special celebrating the 50-year anniversary of one of the greatest horror movies ever made. This movie shocked them so hard, it really scared and frightened them to death, and how it still holds up to this day. If they had lived, they could have seen how the franchise went downhill and saying to themselves, this movie did not need sequels or needed to be franchised with pointless shitty sequels and remakes. Later in the video, John's friend Bill Burns shows up later in the video to comment on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is Johnny Gunn's film Halloween movie review special on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Hello everybody, happy Halloween. Say happy Halloween, Dad.
Happy Halloween.
In today's video, to close out the month of Slasher October, we're going to be talking about the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre of 1974, directed by Tobe Hooper. What did you think of Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Still as scary as ever.
I agree. It still holds up. This film can still get under my skin. It's still even no matter how many times I've seen it, I'm still always freaked out and disturbed with just Leatherface and the environment and the atmosphere, etc. Just
Yeah, I think one of the scariest things about it is that it's something that could possibly happen.
That's true, especially the way the movie opens with a fictional documentary narration of thinking that this was real and it really happened.
Right. Yes, yeah. And it really, and as you've probably heard before, it doesn't have a whole lot of gore in it.
No, it doesn't. Well, I remember when you first showed me this, I was amazed and impressed, how, it still had a lot of shock value for not being a gore fest, because at first, when you hear the title, you're thinking gore fest, but it's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I guess the remake had a lot more gore in it. I haven't seen it, but that's what
I have seen the remake, but it's been a long time. I don't remember if it had a lot of gore or not, but I'll get to that in a little while, talking about the sequels and the remakes later. Yeah. I also how, you have a bunch of these group of I don't know if they were teenagers or 20-year-old, they don't really imply that, but they're just going on on a vacation, and they also, lesson right here, don't pick up a hitchhiker. They come across that crazy hitchhiker who's cuts himself and then cuts Franklin's arm, and yeah. Then they're not necessarily at the they're right next door to where Leatherface lives, and a lot of chaos happens when everyone disappears one by one, and yeah, that's that scene when that guy goes inside the house of the cannibals in Leatherface's home, and out of nowhere hits him in the head and then brings him in and closes. And again, another thing what makes it so scary is we don't see what happens behind closed door, what Leatherface does to this guy.
Right. Your
mind is racing, thinking to yourself, what could he be doing to this guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Where when the girlfriend goes in and she's freaked out, disturbed, and seeing all the skeletons and the bones, and then she's about to just when she thinks she's about to get away, Leatherface catches her.
I know.
Then hangs her up on the hook. It's so frightening. Yeah. What do you think of the main character, Sally, who's the final girl of the movie?
Yeah, I thought she was really very convincing, and you really feel for her in the hopeless situation that she's in.
Yeah.
And you're rooting for her to get away from him.
Of course.
And it's again, it's one of those things where it's close to reality, so it can happen, and that's what makes it scary. It's because it's not something that's in some fantastic world.
No, it's not. This is not fantasy. This is reality.
No, it's reality, and that's what really adds to it. And the performances of the people in that house, the demented performances, and the things that happen are really, really terrifying. It's how brutal they are, and how they really enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah, that's the sick, twisted part about it. They enjoy. Well, the father said he didn't really love, but he was only doing it just to honor his dad's wishes, and I mean, though it's not said, but I kind of get this hint and imply that maybe the grandfather is a serial killer, and they do all this stuff to honor his legacy and keep his spirits alive by killing people.
Right.
Right. Like, as I was telling you before, like, no matter how many times I've seen this movie, close to the climax ending when Sally is trapped with the family, I still get under my skin where they're all at the dinner table, they're eating flesh and they're talking nonsense that you feel like you're there and you feel like you're going berserk and crazy sometimes, like you feel like you're in a bad dream in a way. And
the way he shoots it, it's a point of view from her point of view,
right?
So it's like you're sitting at the end of the table with these crazy people,
right,
intimidating you and implying about the things that they're going to do to you,
right,
and how they're making fun of you and laughing while you're screaming and trying to save yourself.
Right. Like, I remember once watching Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments. Rob Zombie put it well into words. You ask yourself, are these actors or real people? Did Tobe Hooper just find random crazy people on the street in a Smithsonian?
I know. That's true.
Because these are not, these are actors, but they're not like, let's just say this wasn't the kind of film where you're going to see, like, Robert De Niro in a film like this. These were just, like, probably, like, random, like, B-movie or indie actors, or maybe stage theater actors or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really know a whole lot about, like, a lot of these actors in this film, other than Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm not familiar with their filmographies outside of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
Yeah. And speaking of, we have to talk about Leatherface, who was a big, famous, iconic horror villain, right up there with Michael Myers, Freddy, Jason, Ghostface, Pinhead, Chucky, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very scary.
He is. He's a very imposing guy, and he's physically scary looking.
Yes.
Especially when he's got the different faces on that he pieced together with flesh. So.
And in the Psycho video I mentioned how, just like Psycho, this also took inspiration from Wisconsin serial killer Ed Gein.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, like, in the movie, like, he wears, like, two different masks, like, one with, like, the skin, the other one is like he looks like a drag queen with the makeup on. And
yeah, I think there are 3 different masks.
Okay, 3 different masks. Okay.
Yeah, one was the one where when he was the killer.
Yes.
And then he had the one where he was like he was the cook, like the mother.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They were having the dinner.
Yeah, but his father's like beating him up, yelling at him like an old married couple in a way, in a very crazy, whacked up, messed up, dysfunctional way.
Yep. And then the third one, I don't remember which, but I read that there were 3. He had 3 different faces.
Maybe it's possible they could have used 2 different like masks for different ones. I don't know, but I was reading how Tobe Hooper said he got this idea while, in a weird way, Christmas shopping in a hardware store, looking at the chainsaws, and that where the idea just hit him. Just looking at chainsaws, thinking, what about an idea about a horror film about a guy of chainsaws?
Yeah, I know.
And well, maybe he was really in a bad mood, I guess, at Christmas shopping. Who knows?
Yeah, I read that his voice was actually Tobe Hooper's voice.
Yeah.
And it was a very high-pitched, garbled speech kind of a
voice. Like, basically, let's just say Leatherface was not well educated or did not know, like, how to speak certain words.
Right, which is the complete opposite of Gunnar Hansen, who was,
yes.
who was very well educated.
Yes.
And was actually a writer. So.
And I met Gunnar Hansen.
Oh, that's great.
Yes,
wow.
It was. He was very nice, of course, not like Leatherface. Very nice, friendly, down-to-earth, and generous guy. And I mean, I don't remember what I talked. Obviously, we talked about Texas. I just can't recall, like, photographically what my questions were, what I asked him. But I told him that this movie still freaks me out. He goes, "I'm sure it does." But he was a very nice, friendly guy. At that time, it was at one of my second visits to Monster Mania at college in the Sci-Fi Club, and they were doing like a 50th anniversary of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They had him and the other Leatherface actors. I mean, as cool as that is, but out of all the Leatherface actors, I wanted to meet him because he's the most well-known, iconic Leatherface.
Right.
Because he's what made Leatherface, and he was the character.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, well, I guess maybe because when they did the sequels, maybe he wasn't. I don't know if they didn't ask him, or maybe he wasn't interested because of knowing how it won't top the first movie for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have not seen any of the sequels.
Right. I've seen not. I haven't. I've seen like a few of them here and there. Like I saw the second one. It wasn't bad, but you're gonna be surprised. It really was not like what this movie was. It doesn't come close to topping it because it was more like goofy, campy, like over the top than and of course Dennis Hopper. What am I saying?
Yeah.
The third one, I saw it recently for the first time this year. You know, it's funny. In the past, before I saw the third Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, I met the actress Kate Hodge because she worked with Brandon Lee on one of his films before The Crow, Rapid Fire, and I met Ken Foree, who's a very well-known exploitation horror actor. And when I met Ken Foree, and again, Ken Foree was very nice. We had a nice chit-chat. He was telling me about a little story about during the making of the third Texas Chainsaw Massacre that his character was originally supposed to die, but early test screen audience were saying, no, bring this guy back. They wanted him to survive.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And but that movie did have a lot of like production like problems. You can just tell from watching it. It wasn't bad or perfect, but it wasn't like as bad as like what people say it is. But would I recommend it to everybody? That depends if you're a hardcore fan of Leatherface and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And if you thought the third one was bad, Next Generation with Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger before they were famous actors, that was worse. Yeah, that was the worst one of them all. Yeah. And especially Matthew McConaughey. I'm thinking to myself, this guy won an Oscar a few years later. And I'm not kidding. That's the way he acts in the movie when he's trying to kill somebody. Yeah. And also, I don't understand like why they were trying to make Leatherface like a transvestite. Like it's like they were going for like a poor man's version of Buffalo Bill at that time because they were trying to copy Silence of the Lambs. But it's like they're trying too hard with that and just not making its own thing.
Right.
Yeah. And the remake, the 2003 remake, well, again, it's not great or perfect, but again, it doesn't come close to topping this. It was not as bad as like most other horror remakes for that time. It wasn't one of the worst ones. The highlight of that film was, remember the guy from Full Metal Jacket?
Yeah.
He was the one good part of that film because it just shows that it's not about the killer killing. It's about, like, again, with other torture. It's more like his talking to his victims mentally where he's, like, trying to psychologically torture them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The 2006 prequel, that was garbage, bland and forgetful, and never had a desire to go back to it. Just a typical cliched, stupid, dumb slasher movie. The last one I saw to date was the one from 2013. Again, stupid, dumb, ridiculous. They couldn't make up its mind on what it wanted to be, whether it wanted to be a sequel, prequel, and after that I said to myself, nope, I am done. I'm finished with this franchise. I have no interest to watch any more Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. They've done 2 more since then, but again, I can't make comments on those. Yeah. Okay. To me, like, this is the only one I go back to as far as, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because this is such a classic movie. It's an important horror movie for horror movies fans. It has a big legacy in horror films.
Quentin Tarantino calls it a perfect movie.
Well, that depends on personal. That's his opinion. That's okay, but that depends on everybody. And you also said, like, during the making of this film, it was like 100 degrees at the house.
Yeah, it was over 100 degrees. It was in Texas. There was no air conditioning. Everybody was sweating. The meat, they used real meat, and it was a very horrible smell. Right.
And you said, like, I read that when it was such, like, hell for them, they made a joke. They wanted to kill Tobe Hooper because they just could not stand the humidity or the heat.
Here's my friend Professor William Burns giving his thoughts on Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
In terms of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think it's obviously one of the key horror films that really created what we consider like modern horror, right? Or contemporary horror. It's an amazing film. I remember when I was a kid, although this must have been like when it was re-released or something. I remember being outside a movie theater waiting for the movie Popeye. I don't know if people remember that movie. I was waiting online outside the movie theater, and there was like movie posters outside the outside the theater, and one of the posters was for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I remember looking at it. I must have been like, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years old. And I remember looking at it and thinking to myself, oh my God, this is the most disturbing, disgusting, horrifying movie ever. I'll never get to see this movie. And then, of course, a few years later, I did get to see it. And I love it. I think that, Tobe Hooper achieved with that film, was not only sort of in a classic kind of horror way, but also he just modernized it. He really made something that was very contemporary for the time during the early 70s, in terms of the loss of jobs, people losing jobs, in terms of things becoming more industrialized, the post-hippie movement, right? Because you have the kids in the van that are definitely coming out of that generation, and I mean that's really what the movie really is about, right? It's a clash between generations, right? You have sort of the Sawyer family, I guess that's what they call them now, being in a weird way actually embodying sort of like conservative American, old American views, and then you have the kids who are more obviously like post-1960s, post-hippie, sort of looking towards like a new America, like what was America going to be following all the upheaval that happened in the 60s and in the early 70s. So there's that kind of the sort of socio-economic themes in the film, about how capitalism creates cannibals and put those people out of business. They put the Sawyer family on unemployment. What are they supposed to do? So they kind of create their own business, but they use human beings as the as the chattel for it or whatever. But I mean, on top of as well as that, it's also a really terrifying film. I mean, Leatherface with the chainsaw, and actually, I think one of the most horrifying people in the whole movie is the hitchhiker. Like, he is out of his mind, and he is just like, he's this kind of total sociopath. So he's frightening, and again, the chances of you seeing, Leatherface walk down the street, probably not. But somebody like the hitchhiker, I can totally see that, like a person that was, that used violence in that way, and just had like no remorse and had no care for other people, and no empathy, for any of the kids, or even for himself, when he cuts his hand, and so, he's an amazing character. And Franklin, I know a lot of people hate Franklin. I kind of like him. I feel sorry for him. He's an interesting character too. But again, the film I think is a brilliant film. There's a reason why it became such an underground hit. Also probably above ground too, but an underground hit, and why they're still doing sequels to it. They're still doing remakes, which I'm not crazy about. But still, it should show you the lasting power of that film.
Oh yeah, Frank. What did you think of Franklin?
Yeah, he was an interesting character, and that they would choose somebody that had impairments, to basically be one of the major characters in the film.
Right.
I thought he was, even though the character himself is kind of, annoying
and difficult sometimes.
But still, I thought he did an excellent job.
Yeah. When I rewatching this, I never realized how he was so annoying. But annoying, but you feel bad for him, being in a wheelchair, and how that makes him vulnerable to run away from. But obviously we know what happens, and in the opening scene when they're driving, he had to go to the bathroom, and a truck comes by, and he darts off like a Hot Wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you think about it, he's the only character in the movie to be killed by a chainsaw by Leatherface.
Well, it was interesting that the actor stayed in character, throughout the shoot.
Right.
And he and Gunnar Hansen didn't get along very well. But then, afterwards, Gunnar found out that he was basically a method actor,
right?
And that's what was his technique. And,
interesting.
And they became friends after
right.
that.
I guess maybe Gunnar Hansen was not familiar with method acting, I guess, because all he had to do was just play a guy in a mask and who did not really have who was not very intelligent and only knew how to kill people, and he was a cannibal. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know how far Leatherface got in height in school. I can't tell you that his education level. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, just a great film. It holds up. It's still very scary to this day, no matter how many more viewings I've seen. I still get like freaked out by this film.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it is. It's really very disturbing film.
oh, very, very. And there's actually they're coming out with a documentary about the making of this film. You know, like what went on during the making
That's
of it.
interesting, yeah.
When I went to go see it here at the theater by us, you know, for their 50th anniversary celebration, before the movie started, they had a little like sneak preview of a documentary about it. They're interviewing like Stephen King being interviewed, or Patton Oswalt, or film critics, and I might want to check that out at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I guess, what did you think of the other character, like Jerry, Kirk, and Pam? They let's be honest, they kind of were like basic.
They really.
They're just there because we know they're
Right.
gonna die, and
Yeah.
But Pam seems to be interested in astronomy. I notice.
Yeah, I saw that.
She like reads astronomy books in the van, like when they're on their way to the destination. Oh yeah, and also since we talked about the sequels and the remake, the 2022 Ty West movie X with Mia Goth was an inspiration for that film, but just done differently, of course. Yeah, I remember you didn't like X that much, right?
Let's see.
X from 2022 with Mia Goth.
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. No, I think I thought it was okay.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Well, you did see it, but I guess maybe that was a while ago.
Yeah.
Would you want to rewatch it again at some point for curiosity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to see
Yeah.
that.
Well, like when watching X, you can just tell like the inspiration of where, you know, with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where Ty West got the inspiration for X, how he paid tribute to 70s slashers and exploitation films. Actually, come to think, I think this might have been like one of the first exploitation films I ever saw, possibly.
What's that?
No, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
But I really could not tell you what was the first exploitation film. But this might have been like an early memory I could think of seeing like a Grindhouse film. Yeah, basically my introduction to Grindhouse films before I learned more about Grindhouse films. Yeah. Anything else you want to touch upon with Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Or?
No, I think we just about covered it.
All right, happy Halloween. Remember, when you're on the road, don't pick up hitchhikers, and if you see a crazy cannibal family, pass the house. So happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.